Hi everyone, welcome to the YT podcast and the first episode of this very exciting mini-series. Now for today's episode is going to be very simple and very straightforward, and I really want to take an opportunity to answer three key questions you probably have. The first one is what is it? The second one is why did I create it? And the third one, and maybe the most important one, is why should you care? Now, before we get into it though, I want to just let you know that this mini-series can be viewed on YouTube or as an audio podcast available from anywhere you get your podcast episodes. Most important part though is if you like what you hear by the end of today's episode, make sure if you haven't already, you hit that subscribe button. Anyway though, let's get into it, and starting off with is what is this mini-series all about? Well, it's where I'll be answering a simple question. How can we ask better questions to live better lives? Simple enough question, right? This mini-series has been made up of two parts. The first one is where I'll break this question down into smaller, bite-sized topics where we can look to start at different strategies, tactics, and approaches to help ask better questions to live better lives. The other part has been made up of short interviews with a variety of professionals who all really share one common bond. That bond is their ability to do their jobs largely depends on their ability to ask good questions. So far, I've already recorded with a quantitative researcher, a data scientist, a police officer, high-priced consultant, professional interviewers, personal coaches, a psychologist, and a range of other top professionals. So essentially, we can learn how to ask questions like, say, a police detective or a researcher. So that's what it is, but this next question is why should you care? Well, there's a few reasons, but maybe none more important than this. No matter who you are, where you are, or what you do, everything that you and I will want in our lives will either be in the minds of somebody else, or more importantly, ourselves. You see, questions become the tools that we use to mine those answers out from those sources. Sometimes we use dynamite when we should be using a chisel, and sometimes we're using a pickaxe when we should be using dynamite. In virtually every aspect of life, we've become so hyper-focused on the answers to things that we don't really spend time anymore to make sure it's to the right questions. The way I look at it, it's kind of this simple approach, right? If you ask the wrong questions, you're going to get the wrong answers. Ask the right questions, get the right answers. Now, look, this isn't a new idea. I'm sure you're probably not necessarily blown away by this revelation. From the Socratic method born about 2,000 years ago to Dale Carnegie's 1936 books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, to the Harvard Business Reviews of today, it's not necessarily a new concept. But here's the real kicker, the real problem of this. Outside of, say, senior management training, doctors, psychologists, police investigators, we're not really taught how to ask questions. We're not really taught what makes good questions, what to do, frameworks, how setting plays a part, how to prepare to ask questions, and all those little things that help us to ask better questions. I mean, even ask yourself right now, when was the last time you really stopped to learn how to ask better questions? When was the last time you read a book or read some studies or some journals on the topic or even watched a video? Research is showing us more and more and more that if you want that second date, that promotion, to connect better with friends and family, to live happier and healthier lives, to be more successful, and to do more of what you want in life, you need to be able to ask better questions. But again, we're not really taught how to do this. Now, I've always really loved the Tony Robbins quote, and he says simply this: better questions to a better life. It's kind of this garbage in, garbage out scenario. And that really brings me to this last point. Why did I create it? Well, I'll talk about this in a lot more depth in the next episode of the Y2 podcast. But basically, in my own life, over the last 2 years, this has played a huge part. Well, actually my whole life, but I've spent the last 2 years dedicating myself to really learning this craft and looking to bring it to you now. Even going back, one of the most important moments in my life actually came when I was asked the good old question of what do you want to do with your life? But in a simple yet profoundly different way. And I'm really thankful for those two sentences. On top of that, I'm pulling on my previous experience, my role as a recruiter and conducting thousands of interviews, through my experience with business development and business consultancy experience, and really obviously leaning quite heavily on the interviews I've done on the podcast and pulling from many of the best and brightest experts in the world in regards to asking questions and frameworks. From all of that, I've developed this audio series to help you ask better questions, to help you move the needle in your art through the subtle art of being better at asking questions. Really, I want to help you find your 2-sentence question that might change your life or the lives of other people around you. So, if you want to learn how to ask better questions to live a better life, make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on both YouTube as well as your favorite podcasting app. As always, you can check out our website. That's projecty2.com. It's projecty2.com, where you can check out more resources on this topic and even jump onto our mailing list. And you can stay up to date with a whole range of not only new episodes, but also tips, resources, and a special free gift that I'm in the process of building to be released to my listeners. Again, all around helping you to ask better questions to live better lives. As I mentioned, this podcast will be broken into 2 sections. The next episode is going to feature a special guest, the wonderful Narelle Fraser, who's a retired police officer with the Victoria Police Department and has worked in a range of departments, including sexual crimes and the child abuse units. This is somebody who's interviewed victims in some of the most traumatic situations of their lives and the persons of interest who committed them. So you're not going to want to miss out. So make sure, if you haven't already, you've hit that subscribe button. And with that being said, I look forward to speaking with you soon.